Hello and welcome to the Hans Brinker Leadership Series, the series that showcases extraordinary leaders in extraordinary times, brought to you by Adi Partners. As founder and chairman Adi Partners, I'm delighted to launch our leadership series. I'm Sanjay Viswanathan. COVID-19, the pandemic of this millennium, has changed our daily lives irrevocably.
At the firm, we believe that fighting this pandemic at the coalface in healthcare, travel, supply chain, government, non-profit, and media deserve recognition. I am Hiral Desai. Sanjay, if you go to see, we're actually already in week 3 of the Hans Brinker Leadership Series, and it's an overwhelming response that we've received from speakers as well as the audience, isn't it?
Absolutely, Hiral. In fact, as we continue to unearth and identify extraordinary leaders, like the leader we're going to showcase today in these extraordinary times, and share world-class practices to combat COVID-19, it's quite a remarkable journey for us to create this, what we call the cohort of champions, who can influence and energize this war against the coronavirus. I mean, at the end of the day, this series really is about providing everyday leaders a platform to share their best practices and appreciate the efforts that they're putting in to push back the virus. And, it's fabulous that our journey is going to take us from, one part of the world lies in India, all the way through to China, with the Middle East and the UK and other regions in between.
Right. In fact, in our previous episodes, we've already spoken to healthcare professionals who have been on the forefront helping people fight the pandemic. Now we look to get your perspective from doctors, ENA professionals, psychologists, and psychiatrists. These are the kind of people we've spoken to. Let's now move one step forward, see how another community, which is non-profits, are helping us to fight COVID-19. Let me introduce you to Dr. Sunderrajan Krishnan, Executive Director, INREM Foundation. Sundar has been at the forefront of finding solutions to rural drinking water problems in India and especially contributed to documenting and bringing to light the fluoride problem in water. Let us understand how INREM has actually taken up the challenge to fight COVID-19 and how they're supporting the society. Welcome to the show, Sundar.
Thank you, Hiral and Sanjay. It's a pleasure to be part of this show.
Thank you, Sundar. And it's quite remarkable, the place that INREM's located, i.e. Anand in Gujarat, was made famous by another equally remarkable icon as you, Dr. Kurian. And so therefore, when you look back at INREM, what was the motivation to start this foundation?
INREM is inspired by the motivation of having a clean and safe environment and being able to contribute towards a safe future for us and for our children and for the generations of this world. And our people across the country in 5 states of India have been trying to work with communities that are affected with problems of the environment, such as water contamination and its drastic impacts on human health, and trying to see how we can recover from such problems in a sustainable way.
Got it. And was the focus always around that at the even pre-COVID, or you think that has changed over time?
Yeah, our focus has been a lot on water contamination problems, and especially those problems that have a big impact on human health. In India, we have problems such as fluorosis, arsenicosis, which are massive human impact problems. And that's what we have been working on. I would say primarily water contamination problems till a month back.
And given the role that water has, one of my passions has been what can we do with delivering drinking water in taps in India, for example, because even when I travel to the country, and there are lots of other people like me who lived abroad for many years, we're just not able to even brush our teeth with tap water, right?
That's true.
So given the significance of water and the role water has in our lives, how has the role of INREM itself changed?
Yeah, to be honest, that was a starting point when the COVID shock really hit us, the COVID and the lockdown after it. The first thing that came to our mind was hand wash, right? So for a lot of us, hand wash is something we take for granted, right? Hand wash needs
Yes.
some kind of a sanitizer or disinfectant, but it also needs clean, safe water to wash your hands. And in places that we work, clean, safe water is something of a luxury. Even to have such water for drinking purposes is something we really fight for. But then to have a lot of water, especially in the summer right now, in places in India, in rural
Hmm.
India, to have a lot of water for washing your hands is a luxury. That was a starting point. But then when we started talking with people in the villages where we work, we found that there are enormous number of other problems that people are faced with. And in the first week in March, post lockdown, we realized that as an organization, we cannot just constrain ourselves to keep working on the same issues that we have used to work
Correct.
with. We need to rise up to the situation and work on the entire gamut of issues that people are faced with. Our journey post COVID started with people, our frontline workers who are on the ground, coming back to us and saying that we have a much bigger problem on hand than we had
Hmm.
earlier imagined. Right. So in one place where we work called Jhabua in Western Madhya Pradesh, there are around 70,000 migrants who walked around hundreds of kilometers to reach this place, and right now 100,000 more people waiting to come back. When we heard about this situation and then the emergent situation in villages with lack of food and lack of basic hygiene facilities, we realized that we need to have a closer look at each village, each community that we work with, and try and understand what are the needs of each of these communities. So we started an assessment with people, trying to see what are the needs that people are really wanting right now. Is it hygiene equipment? Is it food? Is it water? What is it? And that really started us going in the early part of April.
Right, Sundar. So, you've hit the nail right now because clearly your NGO has put together relief to almost around 3.8 to 4 lakh people in rural parts of the country. Now, if you have to move ahead with the kind of people that you're dealing with, if you could just help us understand what is the on ground reality looking like, because everyone sees what's happening on the urban side of it. Rural side is something where people don't really know what is on ground, what media channels report. That's exactly what people understand. How are the villagers coping with this?
I'll give you a couple of examples. So when we went around and spoke with people, and most of these conversations, because of the situation, were on phone with multiple people in villages where we work. We found a mix of situations. So in one village in Karnataka, in a district called Chikbalapur, we found villagers gathered around the village center, some around 20 of them, because the village water supply had ran out,
Hmm.
right? And there's no way that they could get a water tanker, and they were waiting all together during this period, just waiting for a water tanker. And we realized that all that people need in that village is a water tanker, which is very difficult to obtain during this period. So now there's one village in Chikbalapur in Karnataka. There's another village, a couple of villages in a place called Jhabua in western Madhya Pradesh, where we found that whole entire communities were spending days and nights just consuming alcohol. And when we went into the villages to find out, we realized there was a rumor being spread that excessive alcohol drinking would lead to preventing this COVID-19 problem. Right? Now, any kind of relief of food or water or any such thing is not going to really help this village. Right? We realize that there is a mix of responses you need everywhere. Here, it's a communication problem. It's a problem of lack of trust. Right? It's a problem of misinformation spreading in
Correct.
some places. How do you deal with it? Right? So, our early stage realization was that each area that we work with, each place that we work with, has a different set of issues, and we need to get insight into what are the issues on ground very quickly and rapidly without being too intrusive and being traveling too much in these places.
Right. But Sundar, overall, what's their fight related to? Because we did speak to a couple of healthcare experts as well, and they've been telling us that right now mental trauma probably could be the second pandemic, a silent pandemic that the world could be grappling with. Now, if you have to talk about people in the villages, is their fight still confined, say, to their daily life requirements, and they just don't have the time to worry about how they're feeling on the mental or the health perspective? I mean, what are their fears? What is their fight about?
A lot of it is about the stigma around the problem itself. So if you take the migrants who are coming back to these places and to the villages, there is a big stigma around people coming from outside, right? Keeping them away. The perception is that this is not my problem. It is a problem of outsiders, so keep them away. So there is a big stigma to the problem itself, and we also find that the stigma also creates such a fear and anxiety in people. So some of the communities, when we started having conversations with them, came back to us saying that, what will really happen if we report early stage symptoms? If we report early stage symptoms, if we get quarantined, if we die, even our body will not come back to the community. And that seemed to be such a thing on their mind, such a big issue in people's minds, that the stigma and fear of reporting seems to be playing in their minds a lot.
Right. And overall, another positive that we're picking up over here is that for India, everyone is talking about the pandemic has not really reached the rural areas. Now, the rural, again, is the backbone of our economy of sorts. If you have to talk about the agricultural side of it, the migrant community, which actually comes back to work in cities. So, all of these guys are the ones who are supporting the economy. And it's good that the pandemic has not reached there. But now that you are, connected with so many villages around with such migrant communities, is that a fact, number one? And on ground reality, do you think it will remain like this, or are you expecting the spread to happen?
So we need to exercise caution, definitely, because some of the areas that we work in are highly affected with problems such as tuberculosis, TB, and already a large number of people have compromised respiratory problems in these areas. Now, with the current level of understanding that we have, areas which are already endemic with problems such as TB really need to be cautious, about the COVID-19 problem. Having said that, yes, we also do find that the problem has not spread rapidly in any of the rural areas that we are familiar with, and that's really great news for rural India, except for some pockets, right? People's problems are more related to daily level issues such as food and daily food items and basic livelihood issues. And this is really the time when national programs such as NREGS, that is the National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme program, which provides livelihoods to people, and especially during the summer, 100 days of livelihood per year. This is a time when people really need to get active with programs such as NREGS, because that gives them money. These programs also work on improving agriculture and water, and then people can stay safe within the villages, away from each other, and work on livelihood programs. So we feel that people need to get back to their farms, to their fields, and get active within programs such as NREGS, so that the rural economy can actually get going and people can feel a sense of calm, anxieties can really reduce.
Yeah, understood. And the couple of areas that I want to try and dive into with you, Sundar. One is the aspect of testing. So clearly, when we look at the care pathway around this, we've heard experts say that the most important things is isolation, contact tracing, testing. These are the three big things that people talk about. How do you see the aspect of testing in India, and in particular in the areas that you operate in?
I think India has done it smartly in terms of testing. Not gone really overboard in terms of testing a large section of population. I'll give you an example. The two districts which I spoke about, Jhabua and Chikbalapur. Jhabua is now declared a green zone, right? That is, there's been no detected case now for the past 15 days to 1 month. There is around 15 to 20 tests done in this district, which has a population of around 5 to 5.5 lakhs, 500,000 to 550,000. And there are around 10 to 15 tests being done every day, which is not a lot, right? But then on the other hand, you have a district called Chikbalapur, which has a little bit more population, but then you have around 100 to 150 tests being done in that district. There are infected cases. There are around 18 to 20 people affected with the problem there. And what the health authorities have done is to increase the number of tests gradually based on the response that they're getting from ground. I think that's a smart thing to do, which doesn't create panic on ground, and also allocates resources, limited resources that the country has in terms of health workers, in terms of testing facilities, in an optimal way, so that you really kind of zone and try to figure out where the problem is. So in terms of testing, I feel the government has really got it right, and India started early onto this and is being doing really well, if you ask me.
And that's fascinating because it's a shame that India gets criticized for a lot of things. But I think when we read about how well and structured India has handled this, it's quite remarkable, really.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think one of the really the real heroes of the response to this problem in terms of India has been the women health workers on ground. So if you look at who's responding on ground, it is the ASHA health worker, it is the ANM health worker, it is the Anganwadi worker who provides nutrition. It is these three women in every village who are actually reaching out house to house, talking with people, counseling them, and working with them, right? So even when we NGOs like us work in villages, we work with these women health workers. And then who is producing the masks? It is the women SHG workers who are producing these masks, and hundreds of thousands every day, right? So
wow.
I feel, the unrecognized and unworshipped heroes of this whole problem of the pandemic in India are the women on ground, the women health workers, and the women SHG group workers who have been really giving a response to this issue and protecting the rural areas from the problem.
That's extremely insightful, Sundar. So I want to just dive a little more into that. How are the couple of aspects? One is how are the women protecting themselves? Because they're again frontline, and especially when we hear about healthcare workers and others having a very high mobility rate. How are these frontline workers in India protecting themselves?
Yeah, so that also comes back to our response is that when we actually started looking at the problem on ground, we realized, especially in the first couple of weeks, that personal protective equipment uh, are not available in large quantities for these health workers who are on ground. And that was around, I would say, early March or so. So a lot of our initial work was to equip the health workers on ground with simple stuff like reusable masks and gloves and disinfectant sanitizers, stuff like that, just soaps. But then now we find that the supply chain has been established in most of the places where we work. The health workers do have protective equipment, and they have been taken care of. But it took a certain period of time for this to happen, and so we have kind of withdrawn from that part of our work. But they have been taken care of now, and also that we find that the use of technology is also being coming to the fore here, because you cannot have contact programs, right? You have thousands of health workers in every district. So in some of the districts, you're having massive remote-based contactless programs through Facebook Live or through other means to actually reach out to these health workers.
Incredible. So, again, talking about the women, what really is incenting them or incentivizing them to deliver such a robust program on the ground, which I think, if you, from what you're saying, is really India's secret sauce of how it's managed to contain the virus.
Definitely. If you take the women SHG workers, the self-help group workers, one could say that it's a part of the livelihood, right? So now producing masks is also it's also providing livelihood for a lot of people, across the country. But then, if you look at women health workers, if you look at ASHA and ANM workers, it's part of their job. They have been doing this for every national crisis. They are, I would say, in some sense, the backbone of the country. They have been employed for health problems, but then come any issue, any critical issue, it's these women health workers and nutrition workers who are actually carrying the burden of the country. um, in their If you look at it from their side, they really don't have any choice. If you look at it from the country's side, these are the only people who can actually penetrate into the deepest parts of the country. They are there in every village and every habitation. So in some sense, yeah, there is no additional incentive for these people to be part of it. They just seem to be on the front line.
Right, they seem to be on the front line. Sundar, you did mention something about technology as well earlier. And if you talk about technology, it's at the forefront across sectors. How are you, as a NGO, as an organization, using technology to reach out with the relief?
Yeah, excellent question, Hiral. In fact, I have been fascinated to see how the technology leap, in fact, happened overnight, not just in the more developed part of the world, but then also in remote rural areas. Right? So I'll just give an example. Internally, even within our team, we had communication issues. We started having team meetings. So one of these days, one of our staff had joined the call, and we just asked him a question. He said, I'll put my video on. And he was in this very remote tribal village in Jabua, connecting to the call, and he's part of the relief effort over there, and also connecting to the call, and we were able to have a communication, a conversation with people on ground. I was really shocked, when I saw this, the way in which remote calls and the use of technology has actually brought people together during this period. These technologies were always there. One major aspect in which I think such technologies have been used is in terms of building capacities. Right now, imagine this whole problem of trust that I spoke about. Right, trust in information. Whom do you trust? The whole notion of having someone like a trusted expert or a doctor being actually present somewhere, even in the digital world, it actually gives a lot of trust in the minds of a lot of people. Technology has been able to do that. So a lot of us appear in these remote calls, talk with people around in the country, and make sure that people's questions are answered. And being present in this form, it assures a lot of people who have so many questions in their mind. And I feel
Right.
it's only happened because of the presence of these remote technologies that we have today.
Right. So, once technology evolves further, how do you think that the role of non-profits will change? Do you see some path-breaking changes?
Well, yeah, definitely. So, if you take organizations like ours, we are a tiny organization, right? We just are around 25 to 30 people, and then maybe a few hundred volunteers along with us. But then we are able to reach out to hundreds of villages, to lakhs of people, and it's only thanks to these technologies, that are available today. And the more these technologies develop, so let's imagine, hologram technology developing tomorrow and stuff like that, really becoming reasonable in terms of cost and in terms of bandwidth. uh, I think sky is the limit in terms of how you can be physically present really in different places and really make an impact. So I would say for small organizations, small non-profits, it really makes a big deal because it really means a big deal because you can actually reach out at scale with very less resources with the use of technology
Hmm.
if you really use it smartly. And I think that's going to happen more and more.
Right. And lastly, Sundar, when we emerge from all of this, that's everyone's hope right now. Though we've been chatting about it as to what will happen when the vaccine will come, or there needs to be a cure before the vaccine, we don't know where this pandemic is going to lead right now. But everyone's imagining a society of people not shaking hands, not giving a hug. There will be social distancing, wearing masks and gloves every time. And even if you talk about footfalls in cinema halls, theme parks, etc., everything is expected to decline rapidly. What is the kind of new social behavior that will take root according to you?
Yeah, to just reply in one line, I would say that this too shall pass, right? Uh, I think we'll be back to how we were just before. But then, yes, in the short term, I mean, when I say the short term, it means months and probably a period of 3 to 6 months or to up to a year, there are going to be changes, right? There are going to be changes. You're going to see a lot of people with masks, staying away from each other, and existing social and social exclusion, especially in countries like India and rural India, existing norms of social exclusion also playing out in this whole play of social distancing, right? Uh,
Correct.
that's the other side of, that's the other side of social distancing, where existing social exclusion also will come about. But I feel that it'll be a period of 3 months to 6 months or around, where
Hmm.
things will really come back, and I hope it comes back, and I strongly believe that it will come back. I don't think it will stay for a longer time.
This should not stay for long. In fact, that's a fascinating and insightful conversation, Sundar. Sanjay, especially when Sundar referred to this too shall pass, we do see that positivity, that optimism from a lot of extraordinary leaders that we have been discussing with. And I mean, it does give you some bit of relief, at least at our end, that yes, this too shall pass.
Indeed. I think there are two big takeaways for me, Hiral. I was very impressed by the level of interaction and involvement women leaders have in the country.
Hmm.
Again, it resonates very well with us as a firm. At Adi, 60% of our leaders are women.
Wonderful.
That's what makes me sleep easy at night, because I know women are more responsible. They get things done.
True.
So I think it's and very refreshing to hear you say that they are really at the forefront of the initiative to communicate what villagers or rural folks and semi-urban people need to do. Because the worry has always been for us outside of India, how is India going to contain this given the level of rural urban divide that exists? So that was for me a big takeaway. And the second big takeaway was this involvement with water that your firm, your organization has had. Because again, I see a very close linkage, with the waterborne diseases and how one can communicate the purity and importance of water with what you're doing here with the COVID aspect. So I think there's a lot of synergy. Very refreshing, Sundar. We look forward to hearing more success stories from your foundation, and
Very
looking
nice to
forward
be
to
part of this
back
conversation,
another
Sanjay.
show.
Definitely. I'm very glad to be part of this conversation, and wish you all the luck for this wonderful initiative that Adi Partners is embarked on. And I'm sure that this is going to help a lot in bringing a lot of positive thinking around the world. And especially the fact that we need to listen more to people, right? And that's a big lesson, leadership lesson, that I have learned in the last 1 month, to be able to listen to people and to get people on the front line to lead, right? I think we need to do that a lot more. Your series is helping to do that.
Thank you, Sundar.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sundar. Thank you very much. In fact, thank you, viewers, as well, for tuning in. Sanjay and I will be back tomorrow, same time, to share more extraordinary leaders in these extraordinary times. See you soon.